Sure, Mr. Chair, I'd like to go back to Mr. Wicklum and actually pick up on a question asked by my Liberal colleague, Mr. Brusen, and perhaps I misinterpreted your answer, and correct me if I am wrong, but I'd just like to get a bit of clarity there. In talking about how we measure net zero, you mentioned obviously there's the natural forests we have that are sequestering carbon. You mentioned the removal technologies that we have, which is great. But as I understood it, and of course I'm paraphrasing, I understood you were sort of saying that you see those technologies as something later down the road that we can rely on if other measures don't work. From my point of view, of course, we want to lower emissions as quickly as we can. We want to lean on all the technologies we have and develop those technologies. So why would that not be something that we look at using right away? Just want to get your comments there.
Oh, we're not getting you, Mr. Wicklum. Stop the clock.
You hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's a nuance here. When you take a look at our principle in our summary report about not getting caught in the net, we are concerned that people will start using removal technologies as an excuse to delay action or as an excuse not to reduce emissions. And we are adamant that a successful pathway to net zero is going to have to rely on deep actual emissions reductions. And
I understand that, but if we don't use these technologies, are we not delaying action? We're not going to use removal technology to lower emissions because you want to lower emissions another way, but if we're not doing that, why would we not use those technologies?
Well, again, there's how do you lower emissions? Using removal technologies should be, we think, reserved for the most difficult to remove emissions. And yet, if we focus on removal technologies now, we're quite concerned it will de-emphasize or take focus away from the very, very difficult job of actually reducing emissions. So that is our very strong opinion, which is why we put it in one of the key principles. Is these are legitimate technologies. Okay. Or approaches, but they cannot be used as an excuse to delay action, or they cannot be used as an excuse to actually reduce emissions.
Okay, thank you for that. I would certainly disagree with you on that, but I understand, I guess, where you're coming from. I have